Hey, it's Luke. So when I started out with Ableton, it took me years, and I mean literally years, to sort of get it. Like, I kept trying it and it wouldn't work, and then I tried it again over so much time. And I discovered one trick that changed everything. And it was actually a project that I had to do that changed everything. And I'm going to show you this right now. If you're starting out with Ableton and you're having a tough time just knowing where to start, this is the biggest thing. And it seems really simple, but it starts like this. You go to the tab key, and you go to the tab key, and you do this. So instead of having this here, that's called the session view, and which you're working with clips, it's super useful. It's something that other DAWs don't have, and it's one of the reasons that I love Ableton. But when you're starting out, especially if you've used another DAW, it's tough to wrap your head around this. So as soon as you hit tab, you go into this, which is called the arrangement view. And this makes it so much easier, because instead of having the clips and you're starting to actually, let's go back to the beginning. So what I had was the intro version, or what's the other one? Whatever the other one is, like intro. They're both really similar. So you'd go into drums, and you would see the drum rack, and you don't have this many like drum kits, but so you'd put in the drum rack, and maybe let's do 909. I think that might be in the intro version. So you bring that in, and then you'd go in here, try to figure out how to do it. You'd hit record, and then as you're recording, you're like, oh, I don't have a keyboard plugged in. I don't really know what to do. Then eventually you work your way to this clip here, and you're like, okay, I'm going to go, bass drum, that's what I want. So I'm going to do a bass drum here, and do a bass drum here, and here, and then you keep going because you don't know that you can just do this and hit duplicate. So anyways, so you're going, you've got a little bit of a beat going, and then you're like, okay, you go in and you put in your other drums, whatever, and you have something basic, and then it would just stop there. Especially with the live in the intro versions, they don't have. There's a lot of stuff they don't have. They don't have the synthesizers. They don't have a lot of the instruments that come in with the suite version, and even just the standard version. But then you're like, okay, this isn't complete music, right? So once you hit tab, though, then you sort of start to understand. At some point, you'll click like that. You'll be like, oh, okay, so I'm gonna do this. There's actually an easier way to do this. We can just go here and drag this into here. Especially so if you've worked on something in the session view, you can just drag it over, and then you have access to it. And but let's say we don't do this. We're like drawing them by hand again, and then you're like, oh, okay, what's going on here? So you've got this, and then you're getting ahead a little bit more. So you're sort of, but the problem is, you start here, and then you're like, okay, let's say you do this crazy little drum solo here. This wouldn't sound good, but you're like, what's going on? It's still playing the other thing I was doing. I don't understand what's going on. If you see here, this little orange thing at the top of these tracks, if you click on that, it takes it out of session view that you were working in, and then it gets you working in here in arrangement view. So that's what you want to do. And then this weird sounding, at least you've got it in here, and then you can work on it as you want. But this is only part of it. What ended up working for me, which made a huge difference of understanding how the software worked and how to just work within it, was one of my friends said that her daughter was in a pageant, and she had this song that she had to take down to, I think it was under 90 seconds or 60 seconds or whatever. I think it was 90 seconds, whatever. And she's like, can you do this? I was like, technically I can. And I was working in Reason for years before that, and it could be done in Reason, but it's a hassle for timing everything. And so you'd be splicing it and then just cutting it and just making sure everything's, moving stuff around or whatever. But I remembered a lot of DJs using Ableton at the beginning. They were doing stuff seamlessly. And I remembered bringing some songs in, and it seemed to do what I learned to know was called warping. But so I was like, I think I can do it. Let me just try. So I went in and got a song, and I'm going to load up one of my songs. I won't load up that one. I don't want to have any copyright issues. I'll load in one of my songs and bring it into here. I just have to track it down. One moment. All right, so I brought it in. This is my track in the beginning. There was Chicago. It's about 3 minutes long. Let's see if we can bring it down to 1 minute. So the first thing we want to do, if we hit play, actually this sounds sort of good, even though it wasn't expected, this beat here. So we're going to get rid of this beat here that we were working on. So you could just click on here. You can either click on solo on the track you want to use, or just press this button here. It just takes that track out of the output. So this is my track here, which has already been edited down from the full version. That's like 6 minutes or something. So what we're going to do is what we need it to be this length here. This is 1 minute here. So there's a few things we can do just as a guide. I'm just gonna, oh yeah, it won't work on audio. I'm just gonna take this and bring this all the way to the beginning. So this is the length we want for our track. So we need it to end about here. But the great thing with Ableton is it'll do the warping automatically. So as soon as you bring the song in, it takes care of figuring out where the beats are or whatever. So instead of like editing and you're like, okay, I got to bring this over, sort of the old way, how you do it with, reel-to-reel tape, and you were stuck cutting it and sticking it together. This will just figure out where the next beat is, and you're basically working with blocks, which makes it so much easier. So really, and I'll be honest, half my job is done already. When I was working on this project, I'd say like 20% of the job was done because I was stuck trying to understand like how to copy, how to paste, all the little things that you're learning in a new DAW. But so if I was to take this here, you're working with blocks. Each of these is a certain number of bars. So I can take this. I can actually just cut it and drop it in the middle here. And you'll notice that it just blends in normally. So you don't have to worry about where the beat is, where you might need to work on that depending on what track you're using and everything. But as long as it's got a good beat, it's really easy to do this. And the thing is, by doing this, it helps you just learn little bits and pieces in the software that you'd usually have to sit there and try to understand try to learn on how to edit, how to copy paste. You sort of get used to working within the tracks. You get used to moving stuff around. So it's a really good way to do it. And you've got content built in already. So this is basically, I actually really like how that worked out, but that's not what we're working on. So let's say, just as a very, very basic thing, let's say we were to take this out completely and bring this here. It's still too long, right? So let's do a little bit more. Bring this, still too long. As you remember, we're trying to reach this here. You can tell that we still have a way to go. You can go here and zoom out a little bit. And let's actually just take this part here. That's how we're going to do this. So I'm going to take just the end, cut it, and get rid of this whole long part here that we want to get rid of. We bring the end here. And the thing with Ableton is when you're moving stuff around, it's not destructive. So if you're taking this clip here, let's say we want it to end right here. That looks about right. If we drag this out, the rest of the clip is still there, even though we're just moving part of the clip. In the background, that whole clip is there. We're basically just working with the sort of the top layer of these clips. So we're going to listen to this because it might be offbeat just because of see, that doesn't sound right. So what we're going to do is take this clip here, just maybe move it out a little bit. See? This is not working, so we'll have to work. Let's see if we could bring it this way here. I did this really quick. Nope, that will not work either. This is basically where we'd want it here. That doesn't sound right either. So it's all part of the game. We might try expanding this. Okay, so this is where this is basically what we want here. I'm just going to do a split here. We're actually going to get rid of this whole part here. Move this in. Let's see if it's a little... Oh no, see, that's where we want. This is basically where we want. Oops. There we go. So this is seamless. Now, listen. If you listen to this, you might notice something in the audio. See there? It sounds sort of choppy. And looking back, I don't think I changed this when I was doing this for her pageant. So it might have sounded a little bit odd on big speakers. But if the sound's a little bit choppy, the default on here for the warp is beats mode, and beats is made to catch the transients if it's just beats, no melody, no anything else. But if you're using a complete song like this, it will, a lot of the time, it'll sound really, really choppy, especially if you're moving the your tempo. And that's another thing too, which is really nice with Ableton, is if you decide to change the tempo, it'll follow. This is 85. This is an example where it sounds really, really choppy. But if you go to Complex or Complex Pro, see, it's obviously a little bit choppy because there's only so much it can do, but there's a big difference between that and this one. You know, so yeah, you can work on changing the tempo afterwards. Whereas if you have it in another DAW and you're like working on it sort of manually, once you start playing around with the tempo, then that song won't follow. There are some ways to do it, and there are likely a few other DAWs that will do this type of thing. But it just works so seamlessly in here, and the algorithms for the warping are just amazing. So yeah, we go to Complex Pro if you have it. We'll go back to So that's the thing. So we're working with this clip here. And then when we look at it, we're going to need it to be a little bit longer. So what we might do is just take, you can tell, a lot of the time you can tell just visually where you've got stuff going on that repeats. So let's see if this here. So we'll actually use this, and I'm probably looking around here. So we're going to do this. I'm going to split this. You can do this here, Command E or Control E if you're on Windows. Let's see. See, that's seamless right there. And then this will be seamless. There you go, 60 seconds. So there's so much you can do, but as you're doing that, you're sort of learning to work through the through your tracks. It just makes it so much easier. And once you're done with this, you can start going back into these drums and try to figure out how this is going on. One thing, because Ableton doesn't come with a lot of their own synths in the basic versions, you can go, there's so many free plugins. I'll actually do a video about that separately, but if you look up Vital, I'm pretty sure that one is free. And you should be able to just search free synth plugin and you should be able to find a whole bunch of them. And if you can't find any, you need suggestions, let me know down there in the comments, and I'll post a few that might be useful for you. But all you need is a synth or two to get going, and you can sort of start to build up your tracks. So you'll be able to go into plugins. And that's the great thing, is even though the intro version doesn't have the synths built in, it lets you use plugins, external plugins like VSTs and AU plugins. So you can, you set up your plugins, you just go in here, or if you want to buy a great one, but you can buy Serum and then you're set forever. Costs you a couple $100 if you go on Splice. You can do it month to month, and that's a definitely a good investment. They don't charge you when they do updates, and Steve Duda, the developer, is amazing. He's super responsive, and I've had to talk to him a few times about stuff, and it's just right away you get your answers right away. He knows what he's talking about. He's quick, and he does it because he really loves it. It is a couple $100, maybe 150, 179 bucks or something. It never goes on sale, so don't wait for a sale. If you're going to get it, just get it, and it'll be useful for years. But if you don't want to spend that right now, just go find a free synth plugin. There's so many of them around that you'll be able to at least get going on this. And then once you add, if let's just look, I'll do Serum since we're talking about it. You basically take it, you drag it onto another MIDI track. If you need an extra MIDI track, you can just go create, insert MIDI track. And then we have Serum in here. So if we hit record, so now you've got your track here that you're working on. You can get rid of this track here that you were working on here, bring in the drums, and go from there. This is not going to be a song I'm going to release, just so you know. Anyways, I hope that can help you out. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Oh, and she won the pageant, so I guess it turned out okay.